Mexico is known as an expensive country to travel to and it can easily break the bank. In this video we'll show you exactly how much we spent during our 10-week trip throughout Mexico.
That way you know exactly what to expect if you're thinking of planning a trip to Mexico. And if you're interested in traveling Mexico on a budget, then make sure to watch this video all the way through the end to find out the best state if you want to stretch your dollar.
We spent about 4 weeks traveling in Yucatan, which is known a bit as the most expensive area.
Most touristy area.
Most touristy area as well.
And then we flew to Mexico City where we spent 2.5 weeks, and that is our favorite city in the entire world, hands down.
Good food, good accommodation, lots of things to do. After those 6.5 weeks we spent the remaining 3.5 weeks in the state of Oaxaca and in Chiapas, which are really located a bit in the middle of Mexico, in between Mexico City and Yucatan. The way we organize our travel budget is that we have several buckets for each kind of budget. We have one bucket for daily spend, which are our normal items like accommodation, food, transportation,
drinks,
some of the normal, I would say, lower cost activities that we have. On top of that, we have a budget for flights, and we have what we call the adventure or the activities budget, which is our favorite budget, by the way.
Yeah.
It's our budget that we use for more big ticket items like scuba diving, just in general.
The more expensive
stuff. Yeah. It's kind of difficult to budget that into your daily budget, because then you have to figure out a daily budget and split that and make sure you don't blow it on beers, because that's what we do. So we made
as you will see.
So we made a separate budget out of that.
So, what was in all of the buckets? Behind bucket number 1, the daily spend, we spent close to 4,800 euros for the two of us over the course of 10 weeks, which we think is pretty good because that averages out to 66 euros for the two of us per day.
It's about 2,000 euros per month, 1,000 euros per person. We think that's really a good budget. It's bit more than 30 euros per day per person.
We spent roughly half of that budget, of the 66 euros that we had split between the two of us, on foods and drinks. Now that may seem like a lot, and it actually is quite a lot. We have an app that tracks it for us, and I have to say that I was quite surprised when I saw it. If you've been watching these videos, and by now you without a doubt know that I had a knee injury, especially at the start of our trip, a lot better now. But that meant that we couldn't really do super active stuff. It also meant that we did a lot of more expensive dinners and had a lot of cocktails, a lot of beers.
Food is generally quite affordable in Mexico. I think when you go for some street food, you pay between $1 and $3 per person, depending on what you have. Sometimes even cheaper. If you want to go to a sit-down restaurant, I think you should count down between $5 and $10 per person.
Alright, so accommodation averages around 24-25% of our budget, which I think is pretty reasonable, because that means that on average per night we spend around 16 euros for the both of us. We spent around 60% of our time sleeping in dorms, in hostels, so sharing a room with anything from 4 to 16 people.
We actually did it out of necessity in the beginning, but after a while we really started liking it. It's a good way to meet new people. It's just a great way, and it can also save you a lot of money. A lot of times breakfast was included, or even sometimes dinner was included, like in Cancun.
For us it was really a budget saver to stay in dorm rooms, because I think that a double room, private room is easily 2 or 3 times the price that you would pay for 2 people in a dorm.
Yeah, indeed, that was a bit surprising to us as well. Normally, a private room runs a bit more than 2 beds in a dorm room, but here it was 2-3 times, sometimes even more.
It is crazy.
Places like Tulum, Mexico City were quite expensive for private rooms.
Yeah.
We spent a little more than 430 euros, which is about 9-10% of our total daily spend on transportation. In general, I would say buses are very affordable here in Mexico. We took the ADO buses, which are very famous and are a bit more the luxury buses, very comfortable. They go directly from A to B with air conditioning, very nice. If you want to save some money, you can also take the second class buses, I think they're called, or the colectivos. They're even quite a bit cheaper.
That money for transportation also included quite a lot of Uber rides in Mexico City. It is so super cheap. A half-an-hour Uber ride across town cost us 2 or 3 euros or something, so it's a super cheap way of getting around. I think the only thing cheaper would probably be the metro.
The metro is so cheap. It's 20 cents for a metro ride. Can't beat that. But since Kim was struggling a bit with her knee, we had to take a lot of taxis. Around 400 euros of our budget was spent on activities or entertainment, as we call it, in our daily budget. Most of it went to entrance fees to visiting sites. We went to the ruins of Tulum, of Chichen Itza, of Uxmal, Teotihuacan. We went to the Templo Mayor in Mexico City. We don't go much on organized tours because they're very expensive, unless they're like good value for money.
And then the final category is just other. It's about 250 euros for 10 weeks that we were in Mexico, so it's not that much. It's 5% of the budget only, and that includes stuff like laundry service, having laundry done in a hostel or right outside your hostel. Super affordable. We usually wait until all of our laundry is dirty, and then we wrap it into this big towel, 10 kilograms of laundry, we bring it to the shop, and then we're like, here, please. Between 8 and 10 kilos cost between 5 and 7 euros, depending on where you are. That also includes some medicine, local SIM cards, because that's a very good way of saving on money. You can get some free data included, which means you have 4G. Very nice for us, since we usually only start looking for accommodation in the next place that we're going once we are on the bus.
Yeah.
So that's very handy. Having a SIM card definitely saves us a lot of money, because if you see some of the fees that phone companies charge for overseas communication, it's just mind-blowing.
Muy loco.
Sí, muy loco. Aside from that, the adventure budget, we tried our best to keep it in check, and we ended up spending close to 1,000 euros, but it included a lot of cool stuff. It included scuba diving in Cozumel. We went scuba diving in the cenotes of Tulum, which was
very beautiful.
Totally incredible.
It was one of my favorite dives I've ever done.
Yeah. It's some of the favorite things we've done in Mexico that were part of what we call the adventure budget.
Yeah. All in all, the diving is reasonably priced in Mexico. I think we paid for diving in Tulum, which was one of the more expensive stuff that we did, about 100 euros for 2 dives per person each. In Cozumel, I think it was around 85 euros per 2 dives per person. So not the cheapest, but I would say it's quite reasonable, especially for like the cool stuff that you get to see. Yeah. We also went on a whale watching tour, which is included in that budget as well. And we liked it so much that we did it twice. We did the whale watching tour in Puerto Escondido on the state of Oaxaca on the Pacific coast.
We saw humpback whales, we saw dolphins.
Yeah, it was so cool. We saw more than 10 humpback whales. If you're interested, I'll link the video down below.
I mean, seriously, if you're interested, we can link all our videos down below.
Watch them all.
Binge watch them. So the third bucket is our flights and more expensive means of transportation. We didn't spend too much there because we travel mostly by bus, so we just took a flight. When leaving the Yucatan Peninsula, we flew from Mérida to Mexico City, which ended up costing us around 180 euros for 2 people. So pretty reasonable. It was that or a 40-hour bus ride, so happily pay for the flights. So let's run the numbers. In total, we spent 72 days in Mexico, and during that time we spent just about 6,000 euros.
This boils down to 83 euros for the 2 of us per day, which I think is a good travel budget, as it included some more expensive activities as scuba diving and other stuff as well.
So if you're a first-time visitor to Mexico and traveling there soon, the most likely place you'll be heading is the Yucatan area. It's the most touristy area, without a doubt, of all of Mexico, and it's also the most expensive.
But there's one state that was really, really cheap, and it basically saved our budget a bit as well.
Yeah, it saved our budget, it definitely did. We went to Chiapas state as our last stop in Mexico before crossing the border to Guatemala, and we just loved it there. You have very beautiful attractions as well. We visited the Palenque ruins. They were our favorite Mayan ruins in all of Mexico, I think. We visited the Agua Azul waterfalls. We spent some time in the beautiful colonial town of San Cristobal de las Casas, and it's super budget friendly. The food is cheaper, the accommodations are cheaper, transport is cheaper, tours are cheaper, everything is cheaper. And you don't have the crowds that you do in the Yucatan area. So we would definitely highly recommend going there. We met a lot of travelers actually who were just there for 1 or 2 days, and who said, oh man, I wish I knew that it would be so nice and so cheap, and very green area, very beautiful. If I had known, I would have spent some more time here.
We took some tours in Chiapas State to the Sumidero Canyon, which cost us only 14 euros. We took a full day trip from San Cristobal to Palenque, which included a visit to 2 different waterfalls, included transportation, all the entrance fees, and it was only 15 or 16 euros, so it was really affordable. If you compare it, for example, to a tour to Chichen Itza, which we paid I think 30 euros for, but if you do it, for example, from Cancun, it's like 50 or 60 euros that you pay for it. it's really fraction of the cost.
Yeah. And it's also, I mean, you can still do part of Yucatan and travel there as well because it's right below the Yucatan Peninsula.
Yeah.
So it's a great place to visit, and we definitely highly recommend you go there to stretch your monies. So the question that you're probably wondering if you're like a really budget traveler or shoestring traveler is, well, 66 euros for 2 persons per day, that's still quite above my budget. Could you have done it on less? And I think the answer there is we definitely could have.
Yeah, for sure. We splurged a couple of times on some expensive restaurants, paying like 100 or 150 euros per meal for the two of us, which of course raises the budget quite a lot. We never cooked in our hostel, so we always went out for food.
Yeah.
You can also save a lot of money on that. You just buy some vegetables and some pasta, and that's really cheap.
We had a few more drinks and at parties, etc. So we definitely could have cut back on that as well a little bit. I think that it's definitely possible to do Mexico on 25 euros per person per day.
I think it's possible. I mean, if you just cook some for yourself, drink a bit less alcohol than we did, and I think then you will be able to save quite a bit of money.
If you sleep in only dorms, you don't go out to fancy dinners, that would really be possible. So if you're interested in all the cool stuff that you were able to do and the things you were able to see on this budget, then definitely have a look at our other videos. We will link the Mexico adventure playlist below. And definitely, if you only check out one video, make sure to check out Mexico City because it's our favorite one. We love Mexico City.
We just crossed into Guatemala, which is where we're at now, and we're going to visit some beautiful places here in Guatemala. We're visiting the famous ruins of Tikal, Lake Atitlan, we're visiting Antigua, and we'll even be going to the Rio Dulce.
If you have any question on traveling in Mexico, on our budget, on safety, whatever pops up into your mind, please let us know. We will be more than happy to help because we really loved Mexico and we can only highly recommend it as a travel destination. So if we can help, please let us know. And if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to follow more of our adventures. And we will hopefully see you soon.
Bye!
Bye!
$22 people million living there, so
22
never get bored.
22 million people.
So yeah?
People million.
Okay. Mexico City was really cool. Good food, good accommodation, lots of things to do. 22 okay. 22 million people living there and you never get bored.